thing or what's on the test. We just want to talk about today.
That was really stupid.
That's okay. Everyone fell off a bit earlier today. Maybe this point I might as well test my luck.
Are you okay?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we go over the cycles, please? And like, I guess what we'll need to know for the cycles on the test.
Because whenever she was explaining them, she kind of
I
like
know.
explained them, and then she was like, "You don't need to know this." And then I was like, "Well, do we need to know?"
Yeah, there's actually a good video. Well, it's kind of an annoying video.
We've been watching the Crash Course one,
Yeah, I watched it like 3 times.
but I think that's more than we need to know.
I like the Crash Course one. Yeah, this one is a little bit better if I can find it. It's more annoying than the Crash Course one.
Is that possible?
I don't mind the Crash Course videos.
And some of the big history ones are a bit much.
That's true.
I don't like history either, so.
I can't stand history.
I always like the world history ones where like he covers so much.
Collective learning.
Yeah.
Like, shut up.
And then he'll like summarize it at the end. Super.
I took the CLEP Humanities exam a couple weeks ago. And part of what I did was watch the Crash Course videos. That exam is awful. But if you haven't taken Humanities, it does get you out of 7 credits.
Wait.
Oh.
If you haven't taken Sociology, you should definitely take the Sociology CLEP exam because it's very easy.
What credits of sociology does it get you out of?
101,
Okay.
3 credits, 4 credits. It's very easy.
Take sociology.
Right.
Yeah, CLEP exam, it costs like $80, but that's a lot cheaper than 3 credits worth. Oh,
How
you've
long
already
did you
seen this
study
video.
for 'em?
The Sociology Club exam, like an hour. But I also had some prep from preparing for the MCAT. That was helpful.
What about the humanities one?
I winged the humanities one. I started studying more intensely over the summer and then fell off of it and then got back into it and then fell off of it again. So I don't really know. I also don't know how much I remembered from those. But the humanities CLEP, if you can do it, it's great. But it ranges from basically ancient Greek and Rome to present day.
Oh.
So there was a question identifying the different types of columns in Greek architecture,
7th grade. I learned that. Oh. I don't know.
all the way up through who directed The Godfather.
It's like,
It's a wide range.
Yeah. So yeah, your best bet would be to, if you're interested in taking it, just take it and see, because you're going to rely on memory, not studying. If you remember a lot from your global studies, like courses, or
see, those things just go in one ear and out the other because I don't like my non science or math courses most of the time.
where's this video?
I don't know. I dig world history to be honest.
I don't like being graded on English or history. Like, if you're gonna talk to me about like some ancient cultures and not give me a bunch of names and dates that don't mean anything, then that's pretty cool. If I have to know that John, what's his face, did this on like April 27th, 1834, like I don't want to know that.
Later.
You should. It's free tacos.
Yeah.
It counts for 2 cultural academic activities.
When this gets done.
Damn it! Where the hell is this?
No. Okay, bye.
Why do people keep on saying that's cute? I was having a
Okay, I'm only gonna spend a little bit longer trying to find this video. Kaylee, do you remember anything from this video that would help me find it?
That was the first tomato you took.
I thought it was one of the first ones too.
It was the no tablet.
Apparently not. The reason I like this video is it goes, I think, just as much detail as you need.
Do they call it Krebs cycle in the video, or do they call it the central cycle?
I don't remember. Got it. That's why. It's not called something I would have looked up.
As a struggling actor, I need all the breaks that I can get. At Liberty Buchenload. Liberty.
Okay. Maybe.
Hey folks, welcome back to Gogo Biology. This week we're going to explore energy transformation by comparing the processes of photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Here's what the AP Bio curriculum has to say on the subject. They want you to know that, quote, biological systems utilize free energy and molecular building blocks to grow, to reproduce, and to maintain dynamic homeostasis. Now,
Don't worry that it says AP Bio. It's the same class.
all of this is true, but unless you can support this statement with evidence, it's really pretty useless, and also nobody talks about it. So don't go anywhere, because we're going to be unpacking the processes of photosynthesis and cellular respiration in order to help you understand them better. To begin with, remember that all organisms require a constant input of energy. However, they differ in terms of how they get it. Most organisms do photosynthesis, cellular respiration, or both, though there are a few that buck the trend and do something called chemosynthesis, which does not require sunlight. In photosynthesis, the goal is to store energy, and in cellular respiration, the goal is to release the energy for use. Today, we'll begin digging into which organisms do each process, the reagents and products, where each set of reactions takes place, and the major steps involved in each type of energy conversion. Most people know that plants do photosynthesis and that animals undergo cellular respiration, but this is actually an incomplete picture. A number of different kinds of organisms can do each process, and some of them can even do both. For instance, plants do cellular respiration when they're germinating from their seeds and don't have any leaves yet. Now let's talk reagents and products. One of the most important molecules in biology is a rechargeable, reusable energy source called ATP. The energy stored in ATP's bonds power the vast majority of cellular processes, but in the process of powering them, it gets reduced to its low energy form called ADP. However, through a complex series of chemical reactions and a little glucose, we can actually recharge the ADP molecule back into ATP. We call this recharging process cellular respiration. Another way to think about this is that photosynthesis depletes our supply of ATP, whereas cellular respiration recharges the molecules. Looking at the reagents and products often helps make the relationship seem more clear. In photosynthesis, we put sunlight, ATP, carbon dioxide, and water into special compartments in the chloroplasts. Photosynthesis uses these reagents to convert the carbon from CO2 into a sugar called glucose in a process known as carbon fixation. We also produce oxygen as a waste product. Now let's compare the reagents and products of photosynthesis to those of cellular respiration. In cellular respiration, the reagents are glucose and oxygen, and the process takes place in the cytoplasm and the mitochondria rather than in the chloroplasts. The process produces ATP, carbon dioxide, water, and a little bit of heat. Notice how the products of one set of reactions become the reagents in the other. This is exactly what happens in an ecosystem. Here's a quick look at our chart so far. Next up, we'll tackle the location of the two processes. As we previously mentioned, photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplasts, and respiration takes place in both the cytoplasm and the mitochondria. There's more to it than that, though. Both the chloroplasts and the mitochondria have inner and outer compartments that are crucial to the reactions functioning correctly. In the chloroplast, the inner compartment is called the thylakoid, and the outer compartment is called the stroma. In the mitochondria, the inner compartment is called the matrix, and the outer compartment is called the intermembrane space. Here's what a chloroplast thylakoids are pigment-filled discs stacked up on top of each other. Under a microscope, they do look a little bit like pancakes. The stroma is a fluid-filled space surrounding the thylakoids. The membrane that separates these two structures is a crucial part of photosynthesis. This membrane is studded with several key proteins, including light-absorbing complexes called photosystems and a protein called ATP synthase. Let's check out the membranes in the mitochondria and see if we can spot any similarities. This membrane is also straddled by key proteins, including our good friend ATP synthase. If we look a little bit more closely, we'll see that the ATP synthase protein works closely with something called a proton pump. The pump transports protons from one side of a membrane to another in order to create a gradient. In order to travel back to the other side of the membrane and reestablish equilibrium, the protons have to flow through the ATP synthase. When they do, they reattach inorganic phosphate to ADP in order to create a newly charged molecule, TP. Harnessing protons and ATP synthase happens in both photosynthesis and cellular respiration. We call this process chemiosmosis. Here's another look at our table. To finish up, we're going to go over the major steps in each process. We'll start by splitting up photosynthesis into the photo part and the synthesis part. The photo part is going to encompass the light-dependent reactions, and the synthesis part is going to be the light-independent reactions, also known as the Calvin cycle. The reagents for the light-dependent reactions are photons of light and water. These reactions generate ATP, NADPH, and some oxygen. The oxygen passes into the atmosphere, but we use the ATP and NADPH in the light-independent reactions. The light-independent reactions perform a process called carbon fixation, where they take carbon from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and transform it into a sugar. The sugar produces a 3-carbon molecule called PGAL, and it's essentially half a glucose molecule. Now let's shift over to talking about respiration. When oxygen is present, aerobic respiration is capable of generating large amounts of ATP. The 3 major steps are glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. Glycolysis runs on glucose as well as an electron carrier called NAD+, and we also need to kickstart the reaction with a little bit of ATP. Glycolysis produces a molecule called pyruvate, a little more ATP, and some recharged electron carriers called NADH that we'll use later on. The Krebs cycle produces a little bit more NADH, and it also produces another electron carrier called FADH2. The Krebs cycle is kept turning by the input of carbon atoms from glycolysis.
Calvin cycle.
And it also kicks out a couple more molecules of ATP and some carbon dioxide. Finally, the electron carriers deliver their payload to the electron transport chain. The electrons trigger the same process we saw earlier. The electrons carried by NADH and FADH2 trigger the pumping of protons from the inner to the outer compartments inside the mitochondria. These protons then flow back into the inner compartment through the ATP synthase, generating ATP. Oxygen serves as the final electron acceptor in this process, and the electron transport chain also kicks out a molecule of water. So to summarize, these are both very complicated processes, but they actually do have a lot of things in common. Hopefully this video has given you a better idea of how to compare and contrast these two processes and about how different organisms harvest energy from their environment. That pretty much wraps up this week's video, but I hope you'll check out some of my other work on Instagram, Twitter, and of course, YouTube. If you'd like to learn more about photosynthesis, click here. And if you'd like to learn more about cellular respiration, click here. Thanks again for watching, and please remember to subscribe.
Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
If we know like that, are we good for the exam, do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Obviously, can't tell you for sure, but
Fall asleep with that on repeat.
But like we don't need to know like the steps of the different, like of the Kelvin and, okay.
No.
Okay.
rather than saying if you know all of this, you're good to go, think of it more of if you are comfortable enough with the material that you could have recorded this video, then you know you're set. Does that make sense? Does that clarify what you should be focusing on?
Yeah, no.
Do not worry about the individual steps of the cycles. If you're interested about the individual steps of the cycles, and you can put up with whoever this lady is, those other 2 videos that she referenced at the end, I'm sure are fine resources. Where'd they go? These 2. I'm sure good resources for going more in depth. Or if you want further clarification, it's like 20 minutes overall? Half an hour? You can find a half an hour. It might benefit you to at least watch those so you have some familiarity with the more intricate steps. The AP Bio curriculum actually goes more in depth than you guys ever will, which is not how it's supposed to be, but that's how it is. So this will be more than you'll need to know even for the final. Any questions on that stuff? All right, what else do you guys want to talk about? Yes.
Maybe what we might need to know when it comes to cancer and like what you may want us to know.
Don't really know what she threw. She talked about cancer a lot in this section. For the most part, know that cancer cells typically have damaged mitochondria, which means they produce energy anaerobically, so they have to use glucose and don't have any other option. And they also yield significantly fewer molecules of ATP per unit of reaction, right? Because they are not going through the typical processes